elected officials to implement magical regulation. In light of recent events that were clearly the result of magical hijinks, I see a need now more than ever for strict magical law enforcement, which should begin with the registration of every magic user. Edgewater also stated she hopes to join forces with Evelyn Beaumont's newly established Magical Regulation Bureau. However, Edgewater claims to have not been able to secure a meeting with Beaumont, who has also not responded to our invitation to comment on the matter. In a statement to the Herald from the mayor's office, we've learned that Mayor Beaumont has been granted a high-priority request for the transfer of Detective Jada Summers to New Orleans from her current position in the Miami Police Department. Under Summers' leadership, her team took down the South Florida arm of the Divine Knights, a shadow magic cartel who'd used their power and influence to control the drug and party scene in the city for the past 3 decades. Prior to Summers' work in Miami, the Center for Magical Data Analysis and Reporting, CMDAR, released an essay in 2018 in which researchers claimed it is estimated that anywhere from 75 to 85% of the unsolved murders in Miami-Dade County and surrounding areas could be linked to the Divine Knights operation. Summers will leave behind an impressive legacy, where she and her team reduced the number of unsolved homicides by more than half through their work crushing magical gang activity in Miami. Source: CMDAR data. Mayor Beaumont gave the following official announcement. The Mayor's Office and the Magical Regulation Bureau are pleased to partner with Detective Summers and the New Orleans Police Department to crack down on magical foul play in New Orleans. Let's make our city safe again.
Prologue. Valentina Savant. 1 month after the incident aboard the Montaigne Majestic. Granny was dead, and no one gave a damn. A truth that Valentina Savant choked on for the entirety of her grandparents' poorly attended joint funeral service. Lenora Savant, Queen Mother of the Generational Magic Council of New Orleans, had single-handedly pulled their community out of the muck of scandal the previous queen, Christine Dupart, had rolled around in like a sloppy pig until Granny sent her to the slaughterhouse. Since Granny's death, grief had swollen inside Valentina, taking up nearly all the space in her chest, and now she had to somehow make room for the unwelcome fact that Granny had already been forgotten. The church where the droopy-faced bishop gave her grandparents' eulogy was so empty that the man's sleepy voice echoed in the cavernous sanctuary, and Valentina's hollowed heart. It was hard for her to sit still while trying to wrangle all the emotions, fighting for her attention. She hardly got much use out of the black kerchief she'd brought, which she'd taken from her mom's closet. Valentina had already cried enough. The closed casket helped, too. If Valentina had had to sit and stare at her grandparents' corpses for the entirety of the service, she would have broken down and crumbled into ashes on the spot. But she managed to hold it together because she'd developed a sturdy callus to the pain of absence. So, instead of acting out like her dad, who wailed until Evelyn Beaumont sat beside him and rubbed his back, Valentina sat still, with quiet rage stewing inside her. What happened on the Montaigne Majestic that night had not been an unfortunate accident, and Valentina had a pretty good idea who was responsible for the deaths of her grandparents. It made sense after everything that had happened last month, which began with the confrontation between Granny and Chris's ratchet-ass Aunt Ursula at the pier. Valentina should have known Chris and her family would be out for blood once they learned the truth about the hex doll that almost killed their mother. Thanks, Oz. But then Granny had gotten sloppy, and of course, Chris and her family had taken advantage of that misstep. There was no way in the infinite realms of the universe Valentina would let those bitches get away with what they'd done. She didn't know how yet.